Today, I want to finally talk about the Dragon Prince, or as its sequel series will be called, The Dragon King. There's a lot of updates with the show since its cancellation over on Netflix, and it's now attempting to revive itself as a new standalone series, so let's break it all down. Now, for those who do not know, The Dragon Prince was created by Aaron Ehasz and Justin Richmond, with Aaron being known as the head writer from the OG seasons of Avatar: The Last Airbender. It ran for 7 seasons and was pretty popular on Netflix, dating back to a pretty early time in Netflix's history with originals. But after 7 seasons, Netflix decided not to renew the show. This upset a lot of fans, as they had felt they were waiting 7 seasons just to get to an ending that, spoiler alert, didn't end on a cliffhanger so much as delayed the final conflict. The story thus far had been about the character Erebos trying to escape his prison so he could conquer the land of Zadia and bring about eternal night. Erebos was defeated pretty simply in the finale, however, and his plans were undone, leaving the world in peace for 7 years, at which point the stars will align properly and Erebos will take his physical form again. Now, at one point, Season 7 had been the original end of The Dragon Prince, so a lot of fans were upset that the choice to extend the show led to a lack of conclusion with its big overarching story. But just because Netflix won't order more seasons doesn't mean Wonderstorm Studios is giving up, however, and they've launched a plan to continue The Dragon Prince in a new form, starting with a Kickstarter. These days, crowdfunding a project isn't unheard of, and you don't even have to actually raise all of the money yourself for an entire season. While Netflix owned the rights to air the original seasons of The Dragon Prince, Wonderstorm maintains its rights to produce stories in the same world. So by aging up its characters again and jumping to a new point in the future, they're able to continue the series under the name The Dragon King. Now, other shows have crowdfunded themselves to have complete seasons or series, such as we see with Glitch for instance, but even they have had a lot of help from Netflix and Amazon Prime, both buying the rights to stream their shows on those platforms. With that in mind, The Dragon King's goal isn't to fund an entire series from what I understand, or even an entire season, but rather to prove that they still have the fanbase power necessary to produce a sequel with the help of a streaming service or distribution company. With that in mind, Wonderstorm launched a Kickstarter aiming only to get $250,000 to fund a brand new pilot for this version of their story. At the time of writing this, they've actually raised over $815,000 and have probably gone up a lot since then, and will likely get over $1 million by the time they're done, which was probably the real goal from the start. You see, with all these shows getting distribution online while starting indie, Wonderstorm realized that they could follow the same development path as other shows like Vox Machina, which most people don't think of as indie animation, but which really had a sort of middle ground production. You see, Vox Machina was a long-running story in an online D&D campaign with popular voice actors that eventually decided to turn its story into an animated show. Like The Dragon King, they had crowdfunded to raise money for a few episodes, but instead of doing the rest of the fundraising later, they were able to get the attention of Amazon Prime to fill in the budget for the rest of the season. The logic is essentially, if you can get a lot of money for a production, even without it covering all of the production, it would still prove that it's a worthwhile investment to a studio, especially one that already has an existing audience for their subscription service. By taking a show that can make so much money without any real guaranteed outcome on a platform like Kickstarter, Amazon knows that their existing audience will attach to it as well, and because of this, some of the Vox Machina voice actors even attach themselves to the Dragon King to give it extra star power as well. With that in mind, it's less about how many episodes Wonderstorm can produce with the money that they get here, and more about how much money they can get in general, showing what fans are willing to throw at the show just for the idea of its return, without even factoring in how much subscription payments and merch can bring in. So if you want to donate to the new series, we'll include a link in the pinned comment down below. Go check it out, or look up The Dragon King on Kickstarter if YouTube has removed links at this point. But if you want to know what this new sequel series will look like, let's break down the new teasers. Now, the first teaser for the Kickstarter didn't have a lot in the way of new animation, and instead, it focused on the idea of what the series would be. It mostly contained clips from the previous season, with Erebos explaining as he did in Season 7's finale, that if they kill his body on that day, he would simply be able to return again in 7 years and 19 days. And of course, this set up the idea that we will be jumping ahead in time to see our characters even older. Previously, there had already been a major time jump between seasons 3 and 4, where we got to jump ahead and see our characters as older teens. But with this time jump of 7 years, we'd be jumping well into their adulthood. With that in mind, the first teaser hints at how their lives would change from being children to perhaps having children, with the sound of a baby crying in the background. Already, fans were quick to theorize whose child this could be, but we wouldn't find out until a more recent teaser. After this first more generic teaser, however, the second teaser didn't address the baby, and instead introduced us to Zim and Ezrin now that they're adults. These were two of the youngest characters in the show and definitely in the main cast, with Ezrin being a real child at the series beginning, and the dragon Zim just being an egg until the Dragon Prince gang were able to help him hatch. But even with the time jump into seasons 4 through 7, Ezrin was still pretty young while handling his role as king, and Zim couldn't even speak until the final episode. With this teaser, we finally get to see Ezrin as a real adult, with many fans saying he looks a lot like his father. He and Zim still look close as ever, with Ezrin flying to his castle on the back of a fully grown Zim and then hugging him closely when he sits on a throne. The sad thing is that Ezrin looks really tired or really exhausted, like someone who has been doing a lot in the last 7 years and is finally starting to feel it. It's not that he looks sad, but he looks emotionless as opposed to emotional, as when he was younger he would be pretty strong looking with his emotions whether he was happy or sad. Here he just looks bored and disappointed, but in a very matured, chilled out way. After this teaser, another was eventually put out focusing on Rayla and Callum. This one started with the same narration of the original about how Erebos would return in 7 years and 19 days. Then we hear the same crying from the first teaser. Instead of it ending there, however, the teaser goes on to reveal that this crying is from the adorable baby of Rayla and Callum, who are finally starting their family together. Despite humans and elves being different species, the baby is born with a mix of both of their traits, including having 10 fingers like humans do instead of the 9 that elves have, as well as human-shaped ears. But she does look more like Rayla overall, and even has the little horns growing that Moonshadow elves have. Honestly, even with the reveal of this baby, the real shocker was seeing Callum's face, who's decked out with thick facial hair that you would not expect him to be capable of growing with what we saw of him in the previous seasons. And with his dark magic gray hairs, he's looking more like a grandpa than a dad at this point. And to keep this teaser feeling wholesome and emotional, the name they give this beautiful baby is Sarai, taking on the name of Callum's mother. Finally, just the other day, we got another teaser, possibly the last of the bunch, considering it finally circles back to the character of Erebos, where we figure out what the plot of the new series will be, at least to start. Of course, the whole point of flashing forward 7 years and 19 days is our characters are waiting for the return of Erebos, which is supposed to be just another great battle and war that either leads to an imprisonment of Erebos, or Erebos just returning again in 7 years in the same way. But when this teaser shows us what Erebos is up to after these last 7 years, it gives us a bit of a different setup potentially. The thing about star-touched elves is that they can take a physical form in the land of Zadia, but that is considered a lower form of theirs in a way. When not in that physical, almost human form, their natural form is the stars themselves, where they appear as large cosmic beings that seem to watch over creation instead of interacting directly with it. It's a large theme of the star-touched elves that they should not affect the development of lands like Zadia, and when that does happen, the star-touched elves have to balance it out apparently. This is what led to the world as we know it in the show, with Erebos' daughter Leola being sentenced to death for teaching humans some magic. Despite this, Erebos is allowed to live and is allowed to mess with Zadia to seemingly even crazier degrees without the star-touched elves deciding to kill him the way they did with Leola. Here in the teaser, the star-touched elf known as the Merciful One actually says that they wronged Leola when they put her to death, putting Leola through suffering that she didn't deserve as she was just misunderstood. But despite the pain the Merciful One caused with the punishment, they are asking Erebos to not return to Zadia, as there is only more pain awaiting him there. Erebos, however, claims that he wants to let go of his anger, yet still has a reason to return to Zadia, this time claiming that he feels love. The problem with that is the love is for Claudia, who Erebos had manipulated to such dark extremes, completely ruining the life and body of Claudia to help Erebos achieve his own goals. In the teaser, we see that Claudia has taken on a new identity as the Silver Queen, with some fans in the comments pointing out that her new mask seems to be an allusion to the Phantom from the Phantom of the Opera. This makes sense as in the last 7 years, Claudia is hinted as just living in the shadows, always away from everyone else, and living with the scars that she brought upon herself in secret. In this scene, she presents herself as the Silver Queen, positioning herself as the moon, which in the Dragon Prince embodies the power of illusion, as well as the idea of people hidden in both light and shadow. This makes sense for a character like Claudia, who is good and evil within her and is capable of crazy things and is constantly only showing you half of her. She's known as a quirky, smiley girl on one hand, but also essentially the second biggest villain in the series so far, and it looks like she may be turning even more villainous in this arc. In this scene from the teaser, she's using the power of illusion to make the image of the deceased moon dragon appear for this big monstrous beast who was once her loving servant. With her powers of illusion to make this dragon appear, Claudia is manipulating this monster, not just calming her with the image of a person she loves, but perhaps preparing her to do work that Claudia wants of her, basically holding the image of the lunar dragon hostage over this monster's head. But so far, this is all the teasers we got for the Dragon King. There may be more coming, as at the time of recording this, there's still 7 days left of the campaign, so go subscribe to the Dragon Prince channel here on YouTube so you don't miss any updates, and check out the Dragon King on Kickstarter to donate to the project if you want to see more episodes of the show. See you guys next time.